regular meeting of council for September 25th to order at 3 p.m. Ask for a motion from Councillor Smith that council adopt the agenda for this regular council meeting September 25th, 2023 as presented.
Give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Consent agenda approvals. Ask for a motion from Councillor Walsh that omnibus motion adopts the following in accordance with council's procedure bylaw, September 11th regular council meeting minutes and the strategic priorities chart.
You have my motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Okay, first round of public comments. So normally we do it with pieces that are on the actual agenda, but because of where we were in the committee of the whole meeting, I'm going to open her wide open to whatever you want to bring onto the table. So if you want to put your hand up and you can come up to the front desk, please, ma'am, and we'll just get you to state your name, please. And
I was here last month and had told you that I was doing a petition to oppose the four-way stop at Country High, and I wanted just to present it today. I have 444 signatures, and I've only taken them in our area. I didn't take them all of High River, so I'd just like to present it today.
okay, thank you.
Do I give it to you?
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Anyone else for public comments? Ma'am?
I just have one question for
Can I get your name, please,
Oh,
ma'am?
sorry, Valerie Shea.
Thank you.
And I have one question for council to consider. It's regarding the change rooms in the Recplex.
Yep.
Mayor Snodgrass, you mentioned an item about considering budget in redesigning the change room and washroom facilities. You might want to take into account in the budget the loss of revenue from people who will not attend to the Recplex if there is one universal change room. You said there would be floor-to-ceiling doors on the change rooms, but when you have the number of people that are generally there during classroom swims or during public swimming, it would cost a lot more to provide enough private change rooms for the number of people there. 15 isn't going to do it. Than it would be to put in two traditional male and female and one extra universal change room, bathroom.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? We'll just get your name, please.
Hi, my name is Brianne, and I wrote a little something, so just bear with me because I have a hard time reading on my phone. So this afternoon I came to support my friend Lisa, who is very well spoken. I can tell in her email that the traditional conservative voices have been silenced, but silent majority no more. Mr. Mayor, you started off by trying to relate to our beliefs by saying in verbatim of your words, say we have a transgender male identifying as a female, and they have nowhere to go other than the female change room, end quotation. In the original plans, as I stated in the 1 p.m. meeting, there were a male, female, and a family change room. And as you stated, the committee decided to change that to one universal change room under the guise of safety. When I stood up and asked my simple question of whose idea was it to change it and why, your response was for architecture reasons, and I countered by saying we collectively tell the architectures what we want, and you said it was for budget reasons. I don't believe that is true, as we stand before you and you have no budget on the change rooms as of right now. I watched you speak with the citizens in the intermission here, and the way you spoke to them, you were trying to persuade them that the 15 change rooms is enough. Sorry, I feel very passionately about this one, so that persuade them that the 15 change rooms is enough to go into and change. I have a 4 and a 2-year-old and can tell you that even with 15 change rooms, the efficiency of that will not be sufficient. In my opinion, the High River budget will allow for something as simple as walls to be built. And your other line of defense in favor of one universal change room is if there's only females working and there's an emergency in the male locker room, they cannot go in. Let me relate to your ideology and agree with gender equality. I have seen Mr. London and Mr. Bryan as lifeguards at the pool. Let's hire equal number of male and female lifeguards.
Sure, if they apply.
I'm sure they will.
No, they don't. They don't. Like, I don't know what you mean.
So if
Okay.
you went into a high school and you were like, we're hiring for lifeguards, they're going to say, no, we're not going to apply for that.
Okay,
Male.
You're coming up with an assumption that our hiring process is wide open to whoever wants to
The way
apply
that you
for it.
speak, that you have spoken to me today has
Yeah.
been degrading.
Okay,
And you did interrupt me before, so thank you
Yeah.
for not interrupting me this
Yeah.
time. But I do believe that we can hire equal numbers. To say that out of a town of 14,000 people, that you're not going to have 5 males apply as a lifeguard, I don't believe that that is true. So that's my final. You guys have heard what I have had to say today, and I am against one universal change room. Thank you.
okay, thank you. And for the record, Lisa has agreed to come on the committee to bring your voice to the table for the design committee. We're not digging a hole for this pool next week. It's still wide open. Lisa will bring that. I'm not getting into a debate. I heard, okay, that's why Lisa's on the committee. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Yeah, thank you. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Trying to use verbiage to make me not have a voice at the table just won't fly, so whatever. Would you like to say, ma'am, can you just come to the mic and give us your...
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. My name is May Van de Work. I actually don't live in High River, but the concern goes to the wider community. I live in Okotoks, and we know that if High River goes ahead with universal change rooms, Okotoks will be probably following along with this idea. The impression I get here in High River is that there are very many people feeling very distressed about this, and that's why we've driven here today to see what people's opinions are, and that's all I have to say. I just think this is a really big issue in the world today, and we're setting precedent, right?
Mm-hmm.
You will be for other towns around, and who knows how far that will spread. So if we have boundaries set now, we need to do it while we still can. Okay? Thank you so much for
Yeah,
listening
thank
to
you.
me.
I think Okotoks has an inclusion change room at their pool, if I remember right from being there, so. Any other comments from the public before we continue on? Okay, bylaw 4618, 7th Avenue, Sarah?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. So 2 abutting property owners have applied to close the unopened road allowance of 7th Avenue Southeast. It's not currently open for travel, and the land directly abuts Little Bow Park. The eastern portion is currently being used by the private landowners as an extension of their private yards, and the western portion is being maintained by the town as as if it was already part of Little Boat Park. The town of High River entered into a lease with the property owner at the time in 1981 through a payment of $1. Therefore, the land has not been accessible to the public since that time. Since that time, it has been identified that this land was not the town of High River's to enter into a lease with land that contains roads and laneways in towns in the province of Alberta is actually owned by the province, but under the care and control of the municipality. And town administration does not believe that this portion of land that is being used by the abutting landowners is necessary for municipal purposes. So if the subject bylaw is approved by council and then by Alberta Transportation, the town will ultimately gain ownership of the subject lands. And at that point, the council may consider declaring a portion of these lands as surplus. And then that would allow the abutting property owners to actually purchase the land at fair market value and then subsequently apply to subdivide the land and consolidate it into their respective parcels so they would actually own it. There is a town water line that runs below the property, so there will need to be a utility right-of-way agreement. The applicant will be responsible for creating the required agreement to the satisfaction of the town of High River, and that will be a condition of third and final reading of this bylaw. If council does ultimately choose to give third and final reading to the bylaw, council will subsequently be required to declare this land as surplus. That will happen after it goes through the Alberta Transportation process and they accept it, but it is something that it would be beneficial for council to consider at this time. It would be beneficial to the process. However, there will still be an opportunity to discuss any concerns that might come up after the land has been given title, but prior to the land being declared as surplus. That concludes my presentation. Are there any questions from Mayor and Council?
I see none, but yeah, this is a years-long piece that's been going on, so I'm glad that the one landowner is finally agreeable to this because it's the only thing that makes sense for that piece. So, questions from council? I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Nychuk that council give first reading to bylaw 4618/2023 and that council direct town administration organize and advertise a public hearing for October 23rd, 2023 at 3 p.m.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Sarah. Signing authority policy, Jody.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. Before you and within the agenda package, there is a proposed signing authority policy. This is something that will provide direction for all staff so that there are a clear understanding of the expectations regarding the level of approval and the ability to execute agreements, bylaws, contracts, financial matters, investment decisions, letters, minutes, payroll, policies, and other binding documents. As you may have noticed on previous and, well, even current reports that are brought forward to council for approval, at the end of the recommendation in the resolution, it is listed that council give authority to the mayor and CAO, or perhaps even the director and the CAO or another staff member, the authority to execute an agreement. This will help provide that direction without that being required within each of our resolutions. The policy does align with our procurement policy, which states that agreements with a value of $75,000 or less that are already accounted for in the budget can be executed by administration. Of course, any agreements with a value that are not within budget do need to come forward for council's consideration, as well as any agreements that have a value of greater than $75,000, even if they are considered in the budget that council has approved, they will need to be brought forward to council for their consideration and approval. This is in an attempt to protect the town's reputation, assets, resources, as well as providing information to clearly outline that approval and execution process in the hopes of improving our professional and ethical performance as administration. Does council have any questions that I will do my best to answer?
See none. Thanks, Jody. Ask for a motion from Councillor Jones that council adopt the signing authority policy HR POL 100-03.
I'll give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Snow and ice policy, Riley.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm here to present updated policy for snow and ice control. The changes, majority of the changes being of a housekeeping nature in terms of titles, some wording, division names, etc. The one major change is the map at the back where we combine priority 1 and 2. We have found through practice that we're typically clearing them at the same time because we have to drive over the priority 2 roads to get to the priority road 1 roads anyway. So some housekeeping, a new map, and a combination of priority 1 and 2. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Pretty simple. Ask for a motion from Councillor Smith that council adopt the signing. Council adopt the updated snow and ice control policy POL 28-106-00 dated July 10th, 2023.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Follow my own notes. All in favor? Carried. ACP grant, Riley.
So we are wanting to apply for the ACP grant, which is Alberta Community Partnership Grant, for purposes of evaluating the potential of a combined regional wastewater plant between the town of High River and Foothills County. As we have gone through our design process for our upgrade facility, or upgraded wastewater treatment facility, we have arrived at a point where we are now contemplating full mechanical. The plant was originally supposed to be an augmentation of the lagoon-based system we already have. The costs on that were, when we looked at the costs of that compared to full mechanical, we realized there actually might be a bit of a savings going to full mechanical. The aeration system on the existing lagoons needed basically a redo, which was adding a bunch of cost. And given what we already had to add to meet treatment effluent requirements that AEP has put on us, plus whatever remediational equipment, parts, whatnot that we needed, it was getting equivalent to a full mechanical. We think there might be some savings in there. We're still refining those numbers, but it's very close. When we started talking about full mechanical, it became of interest to the county because a full mechanical plant would reach much higher effluent standards than what we are required with a lagoon-based technology. Therefore, a combined plant might be feasible. We did some rough numbers. This could potentially, again, very rough, very preliminary, in the range of about 11 million over 25 years. That would be, those savings would be split between the county and the town. So at first glance, there appears to be some savings. We'd like to apply for the grant, which would fund the study to go through these numbers in a bit more detail. We've talked to Environment because they have put some very firm deadlines on us, and they have expressed interest in us pursuing this because it does get us to a higher standard, so it helps their cause with effluent qualities at Frank Lake, so they're very much interested in this as well, and indicated there'd likely be some flexibility in terms of deadlines. So we're here today to ask for council to support the resolution. The resolution is required for the grant application. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Riley. So is the county supportive of us partnering up on this project if it's,
Yes.
Okay.
They're interested in saving money too.
okay?
There would be a lot of conversations in future in terms of how it's operated, rates, those kind of things. Those are not just conceptually together. Are we interested in building a plant together? And they were. So
Okay.
we did sit down and meet with them on that topic.
Well, it'll make CMRB very happy too to hear that we're trying to do this together. Frank Lake, if we do this, our effluent currently is discharged into Frank Lake,
Correct.
which keeps Frank Lake full of water.
Correct.
If we do this plant in Alderside, the county's just discharge goes directly back into the Highwood River. Will ours do the same, or will we be?
No, we would continue to Frank Lake.
Okay.
The license currently in place requires that. There is an opportunity. So our water license says we must give water back to the Highwood. There is qualities with our effluent, or there's issues with our effluent quality going back to the river. On top of that, the commission holds a transfer license, which essentially transfers our effluent to Frank Lake. And so there would have to be a discussion around that transfer license, quality and whatnot. So in the interim, we would just continue to Frank Lake as we currently do. But it does open the door as our effluent increases in volume. Is the Highwood now an option? What more would be required? There are some thermal issues, some nutrient loading issues, ammonia, et cetera, that if we were to go to the Highwood, that would have to be investigated. And then, yes, you're right, the balance to Frank Lake, what would be needed to sustain that wetland. So there would be more conversations, but definitely opens the door to that and maybe some potential future savings with twinning force mains and things like that.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Kinghorn?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Lakefront property for sale?
Lakefront.
I had to say it. Question, does this postpone?
didn't. Out at Frank Lake?
Does this postpone, I think we had a budget line of $650 or something like that for work on this wastewater treatment. Is that all going to stop now and we're going to switch gears? Is that what you're saying? Or are we still going ahead with that $650 study money, whatever?
We would still have to work through that. You'll also still see a budget request for 24 for engineering, full detailed design, et cetera. So environment
Mechanical?
to be determined. We're still working through the final details on that one. We think mechanical right now. Everything is looking towards that's our preferred option, and it might save us a little bit in the order of I think $1 million over 25 years, a little over 1.3, I think, something like that. And so that is definitely something we do want to pursue. We think it's better at this point. But we do have to finish the conversation with environment. Environment still wants us to proceed with design and getting on with a new facility, but they have said they're willing to be flexible to allow this study to take place because it's in their interest as well for us to actually combine the facilities.
But what I hear you saying is we're still going to spend that $650,000, even though we've got this whole other thing going on the other side that will negate that.
Sorry, we would make a decision on if we were going to combine with the county first. So we'd want
Before
to
we
do,
spend the money, before we go
Correct.
ahead. Okay,
Correct.
that's
So
what
we
I
wanna
wanted to
do
make sure
this-
is we're putting a hold on all of that spend until we work
Yes.
our way through this. Okay.
You're
thank
not
you.
going to see it come back, but it is going to be delayed in terms of it being spent.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Nychuk?
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. Thanks for those questions, Councillor Kinghorn. My mind was going the same way, but then a side question to all of it was, Mayor Snodgrass, you mentioned, and I didn't read it in the report, but this being built at Alderside? That decision wouldn't have been made yet where this potential partnership piece could go, right?
No, we'd have to look into that some more. The existing location probably makes the most sense because that's where the force main and the lift station are.
Yeah, otherwise we'd be looking at a whole bunch more expense to send it farther up north, right?
Correct. So where does it make, the county would have to pump their sewage to us likely. Now, we'll look at the options should we get the grant. But that's probably the most logical location at this point.
Thanks.
So just for clarity, because it's an ongoing question I get asked, the construction that's happening at Alderside right now, the county, is that for wastewater?
Water.
That's for treated water?
That's their raw water.
That's raw water. So
Raw
this-
water storage.
So this wastewater treatment facility would be placed somewhere other than what you're seeing there. That's a completely separate conversation.
I think so they do have an approval for a wastewater plant in that vicinity.
Right.
They don't have need to build it yet, but they're getting very close to needing it.
Okay.
This
Okay. So where that
timeline
is.
that we're on actually suits them very nicely.
Okay. Perfect. Ask for a motion from Councillor Nychuk to Council Direct Administration to submit a 2023-2024 Alberta Community Partnership Grant application in support of the Regional Wastewater Study Project under the management of the town for the grant project and related compliance requirements.
Happy to give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Good. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Riley. 112th Street, properties to Urban Reserve. Sarah?
The 112th Street properties are all currently still zoned under the Foothills County Land Use Bylaw. Some of those properties are zoned country residential. Others are zoned country residential along with site-specific land use bylaw amendments that were given while they were still part of Foothills County, and one is zoned rural business. Rezoning the properties to Urban Reserve District, or URD, would mean that all of the buildings and all of the uses that are currently on those properties today that are outside of the scope of URD would become what's called legal nonconforming. These these buildings and uses would continue to be legal nonconforming until the Area Structure Plan, or ASP, and Functional Service Report, FSR, are complete and accepted by council, and then the owners could proceed with zoning those properties to the zone or zones that would be corresponding to the land uses that are identified in the ASP document. There are several uses in buildings that have been approved through the Foothills County's land use bylaw and associated land use bylaw amendments that would become non-conforming under the town's URD. But no uses or buildings that were legally approved would be required to be removed by virtue of this change. Also, any development permits that have not expired would remain valid. Town administration has been given the direction to discourage new development on these properties, except for dwellings that comply with the country residential zoning in this area, because piecemeal development will make planning for the future of this area ever more challenging. For example, road placement, etc. Therefore, limiting the new buildings and the new uses to just URD and allowing existing buildings and uses to continue would really not be that significant of a change in practice, but would, however, bring significant clarity to the situation, as the properties would no longer be zoned under the now superseded 2021 version of the Foothills County Land Use Bylaw. Council could have the option of considering allowing a maximum of one dwelling unit per lot in this area to be a permitted use. And the significance of that is in the town's URD, dwelling units are only discretionary, not permitted, meaning that there would be a public appeal period. So council could consider just kind of waiving that appeal period and making it just permitted for one dwelling unit. The URD does allow home occupations, but the town's provisions for home occupations are limited. So limited signage, vehicle and equipment service and repair are actually not allowed, and outdoor storage is prohibited. It is important to note that it is not the intention to keep this URD zoning on these parcels for any kind of an extended period of time. The properties can totally be rezoned once the ASP and FSR are accepted by council. The key issue here is that many property owners within the 112th Street area are very interested in development that is beyond the scope of the current country residential zone. However, the annexation agreement does not allow for rezoning beyond urban reserve district before the appropriate higher level technical studies are in place, meeting the area structure plan and functional servicing report. The current situation of retaining the original Foothills County zoning for these parcels is really proving to be untenable. Interpreting the superseded 2021 version of the Foothills County land use bylaw and previous bylaw amendments that took place before the annexation is confusing for both staff and landowners, as well as for real estate agents and for the general public. It is important to have a clear path forward. Whatever is chosen, it is very important to have a clear path forward on how the area will be developed in a comprehensive manner that facilitates opportunities for meaningful public engagement. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Sarah. I'll open it up to Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. We all know how sensitive this property is and this issue is over there. I have a couple questions. One is will there be any implications with respect to property taxes going forward, or will that stay the same? And the second question is, have all the landowners been talked to about this change?
I'll start with the second question first. No, the property owners have not been talked about regarding this change. This change is something that actually came up out of a discussion that I was having with Chris Prosser and the mayor here with respect to a specific property owner's requests. We were having the meeting last week, actually. So that is what led to bringing this discussion forward today. So the landowners have not been consulted. So yes, of course, we will need to do consultation to make sure that they completely understand the implications of this change. And I'm actually not sure what the implications would be for taxes. I would need to review the annexation agreement unless Chris knows.
If Mayor Snodgrass through the Councillor Kinghorn, if I understand the annexation agreement appropriately, the change in this zoning would lead to them paying municipal taxes.
We've been through that before, haven't we? I think the one property municipal taxes were almost triple what they were to the county. And just because we made a change in the land use bylaw, their taxes went up megafold. I don't remember. I met Mayor Snodgrass. I was in the audience when this happened. I didn't think it was fair to the landowner. This was down from the high school. And I didn't think it was fair to the landowner that the town decided to change the land use and it somehow impacted their taxes significantly without them being made aware. Now, I might be a little confused because this is going back a number of years, but if we're going to do something as a council to change a land use bylaw on a number of properties over there that's going to impact their taxes, I think they should be informed and we should be communicating with them what's going to happen. And part of this annexation agreement that we had with them is there would be no change to their property taxes until they initiated something. And it sounds to me like we are initiating it now. Is that?
Yeah.
I'll step in, Chris. Here's the problem that we've got, Jamie, is that all these properties are so different and with so many differing businesses and layouts of their property and what's going on. Every single one of them is different. Have we talked to all of them? No, but I've had discussions with 5 of them. They all want to do something different, and currently with the county's land use bylaw, we're handcuffed with what we can do. So, yes, we want to do the ASP, but right now, like, it's very hard for us to even allow somebody to simply subdivide their property.
Understood, I
So
understand.
with the tax, on the tax end of things, I think council can do whatever you want. You can rezone this as urban reserve so that these guys can kind of start to figure out what they can do with their properties. But you can also still honor the annexation agreement, which is, I think, is a 5-year under the county's taxation. But under that agreement as well, as soon as they redevelop their property, rezone it or anything, well, now that's what triggers the town of High River.
And that's,
So I can't remember.
no, I agree with you, that's their choice.
I don't know what property is
Yeah.
you're talking about.
I
so-
can't remember the gal's name,
but-
but that's their choice. When they make that decision to change
And be
use,
annexed into the town.
well, no, in the annexation, I think what we said was, we're annexing you until you make a change to your land use or development, your taxes will remain the same as what they were when they were in the county.
For 5 years. There's always a timeline on it.
I don't recall that. That could be, and if that is, then that's different. But I think we need to be transparent with these folks and come forward and say, this is what we're planning to do. And I would want to leave their taxes as is. If they've done nothing to change this, I don't think we're being very fair to them to come in and say, we've decided we're doing this.
Well,
because
but that's not what's being decided today. This is just directing town administration to undertake public engagement and prepare bylaw amendments.
Yeah,
So we're not
no.
doing anything today. We're doing exactly what you're asking is
Okay,
public engagement, talk to the landowners, make sure everybody understands, but
just
this
making
thing's a
sure
quagmire
everybody
out there,
hears.
man. We gotta start, everybody's, land is changing hands out there and people are investing in this land, wanting to do something, then they go to try to do it and their hands are tied. Because the previous landowner didn't tell them anything about the annexation agreement, right? Which isn't our thing to babysit, absolutely
Right.
not. But, you know, we've still got
Yeah.
people that are residents of High River now that have properties that are kind of wanting to figure out what to do.
Yeah, but if I was to buy a piece of property and wanted to do some things, it's my responsibility to
100%.
pursue. So I get that, but I'm just putting it out there that it's a very sensitive area. We don't need to stir it up and get a whole big roar going on over nothing right now. Thanks.
Any other questions? Oh, I'd love to give this one to Councillor Kinghorn, but I won't do that. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Walsh that council direct town administration to undertake public engagement and prepare bylaw amendments regarding rezoning the 112th Street East land to urban reserve district, and that allowing maximum of 1 dwelling unit per lot as a permitted use should be supported.
You have my motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So just so everybody's very clear on what you're voting on, no actual decisions are being made to move this. This is just to start the process, engage with the public, figure out what the bylaw amendments look like, and adding this 1 dwelling unit per lot as a permitted use is a good thing as well. So if all the landowners say no, we want to stay within the Foothills County land use bylaw, sure, great, but you gotta understand how tied you are with what your options are for doing anything with your property. So anyways, we're ready for the question. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, sir. Okay, back to the coal mining thing. This resurrected itself last week, and North Back Holdings, which used to be Benga Mining, that previously applied to mine Grassy Mountain, and the AER and the federal government declined their application, saying it was not in the public interest to have a coal mine on that facility because of water concerns and everything else. So problem is Benga has changed their name to Northback, and they are now asking for a deep drilling permit associated with coal exploration on Grassy Mountain. So the problem that sits in place now is that I don't understand. We're trying to get more information as to how this was even able to start, is the fact that there's a ministerial order in place that Sonia Savage put in place a couple of years ago that does not allow any new development or exploration in any class of coal on the eastern slopes, class 1, 2, 3, or 4. Grassy Mountain does sit in class 4, even though it's right in the dead center of class 2. So my question has been is how can this ministerial, with the ministerial order, why are we even talking about these guys being able to apply to the AER for an exploration permit that's quite extensive? They're talking about deep drilling permits down to 300 meters or so, which is a long way. So they are accepting, the AER is accepting statement of concerns regarding this, and I think with our Town of High River's involvement over the coal mining fight on the eastern slopes, that we should have a voice in this whenever we possibly can. So I'm supporting that we file a statement of concern with the AER regarding this application. Now, the only way that in the current ministerial order, the only way that they would be allowed to do any exploration is if either the Minister of Energy, Brian Jean, or the Minister of Environment, Rebecca Schultz, had provided them with a written letter that revokes the ministerial order that allows them to do this. So I phoned both Brian Jean and both Rebecca Schultz, and both of them assured me on Friday that no, they have never sent any letters to. So that didn't happen. So we're trying to figure out whether or not this is just a procedural thing with the AER, that they automatically take any application that's put to them and it goes on their website, and then, you know, people can see it, and that's why this one's kind of blown up, and that it just hasn't been caught by the right people within the AER, understanding that there's a ministerial order that prevents this from going forward. So that's my ask today, is to simply file a statement of concern. We're not going to make it big, doesn't have to be long. It's a one-pager, just stating that there's a ministerial order in place and no letters have been received by Alberta Environment or Alberta Energy, and therefore this application should be removed and declined. So I'll ask for a motion from myself. The council direct administration to file a statement of concern with the Alberta Energy Regulator regarding application 1948547 by Northback Holdings Corporation for a deep drilling permit associated with coal exploration program on the Grassy Mountain deposit located north of Blairmore, Alberta, before the October 6, 2023 deadline. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Council reports. Anybody have anything? Fantastic job for the burnout. The burnout was a riot Saturday night and packed full of people. It was a blast. And the car show yesterday was absolutely incredible as usual. As soon as we get good weather, the place is always packed. But it was hot down there yesterday. 1,400 cars is what Roger told me. So very well done by River City Car Classics on that one. Councillor Nychuk.
Just publicly, Mr. Mayor, do you want maybe we reference our neighbors to the west and their facilitation of some change in their operations for this weekend's event and next weekend's event?
Yeah, go ahead.
So obviously, two really huge weekends in High River. We have had our, let's call it, at odds with Rimrock, with their partnership with Tidewater as well on their biodigester project. But I reached out to the mayor. He's got very good relationship with Rimrock, and he placed a call or a communication with Rimrock and asked them if they would cease manure spreading operations for the weekend, because we've got lots of people that, you know, that come to town, that visit, that want to enjoy our community, enjoy the events. So happy to say that they were very pleased to oblige, and they stopped those operational procedures for this past weekend, and they'll do the same for Councillor Kinghorn's balloon event on the weekend. So if you're going to go to the Balloon Glow on Friday, you should have nice, fresh High River air to enjoy that event. So our thanks to Rimrock for complying with the mayor's request. So
Thanks, Michael. Anybody else? Any board and committee reports? And we're back to anybody with public comments before we move into other parts. See none, hear none. Council correspondence requiring action. Proclamation of Disability Employment Awareness Month is brought forward by Inclusion Foothills. It's pretty simple, and I think it's a good thing that we do. So I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Jones that Council proclaim October 1st to October 31st, 2023 as Disability Employment Awareness Month, and that Council authorize the Mayor to sign the Town of High River Disability Employment Awareness Month proclamation.
I'll give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Correspondence for information, correspondence with the Aquatic Expansion Change Room, which we heard a lot about in the Committee of the Whole meeting, and correspondence regarding High Country Drive, which we also talked extensively about in the Committee of the Whole meeting. So on that note, we will move into the in-camera session, so it'll be council and staff only. So I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Barton that council recess the regular council meeting on September 25th, 2023 at 3:47 p.m. and move into a closed meeting pursuant to section 1972 of the MGA.
You have my motion, Mayor.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Carried. Okay, regarding Sunrise Crescent Pathway easement agreements, I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Kinghorn that council authorize the purchase of a 1.4 meter wide right-of-way, 30 meters long across Plan 0722820, Block 8, lots 15 and 16 in the amount of $2,500 each, and that council authorize the CAO and mayor to execute the right-of-way agreements.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I'll give you that motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Meeting adjourned, 4:16.